I'm Dianne Donovan. We are simply delighted to have internationally acclaimed two-time Grammy award-winning bass baritone, up for another Grammy very recently, Ryan Speedo Green in the Draylen Mason Music Studio of KMFA, fresh off a concert and taping at Austin PBS as part of Austin Opera's Opera ATX program. You've heard him on the Met broadcast. In fact, among his numerous awards is National Grand Finals winner of the 2011 Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions. Welcome, Ryan Speedo Green.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here and awesome with all the good music and good barbecue.
Yeah, no kidding. May I call you Ryan?
Speedo. Call me Speedo, yeah.
Even
Only
better.
my mom calls me Ryan when she's mad at me.
Okay, you got it. Well, you're certainly no stranger to Austin. You were here just a couple of years ago performing in an all-star concert at the Long Center for the Performing Arts, again for Austin Opera's ATX program, which was filmed by PBS and reached an audience of 113 million over time.
Wow.
It was shown in 50s. You didn't even know that. Well, and here, I got to ask you, what was it like to have 226 million ears focused on you when you think about that now? And could you fathom that when you were deciding to be an opera singer?
Well, honestly, it's a bit overwhelming to think that many people would want to listen to me at all. You know, my wife often tells me I'm the voice that you want to go to bed to, not the voice you want to wake up to. So I'll take it as a huge compliment that many people want to listen to my voice.
That's amazing. What did you perform in this latest special?
So in the PBS special we did, it was a theme about the different perspectives of death. And so every one of the pieces and cycles was a perspective on death, both being like death being something that's horrific, death being something that's maybe a release for some people, and also death being something that's inevitable. And some certain people believe that death is something that when you die, you go into nothingness. Some people believe that when you die, you go to a better place, heaven. And some people, for instance, in spirituals, believe that death is literally release. Like death is the only place where I can truly be free. Wow. And that's I thought it was a really awesome idea to showcase the different perspectives of death to the Austin audience and the world.
Well, did you bring your own perspective on death, and would you feel comfortable sharing that with us? Which of those beliefs?
I'm a religious person, and I would consider myself a Christian, but I'm not a huge fan of organized religion. And I believe that God would never create something that He didn't love. And for me, that perspective, when it comes to death, means that no matter what you believe in, if you're a good person and you treat others the way you want to be treated and live a life of the best to the best of your abilities, then in death there's a better place. And I don't believe death is the end. I sort of believe it's the beginning. And as a person who's experienced loss, both personal and it really affects me when I see people who pass away in ways that are not natural. Death is something that we all have to come to terms with.
Right. Wonderful. And in that program, you were working with pianist Adam Nielsen,
Yeah.
Is that right? Oh, wonderful. Much has been made about your troubled childhood to opera superstar. And in fact, many of us did get to read the excellent biography by Daniel Bergner, Sing for Your Life, A Story of Race, Music, and Family, an excellent book. Which I read last year.
The New York Times bestseller, shameless plug.
Yeah, I did. Actually, I had that written in there. I'm just improvising on my own notes. But yes, it was a bestseller, and so many of the articles and features of conversations and such talk about this amazing journey at the start and such. At this point in your career, you're doing so much, and you're just having amazing success. Is it something you're still comfortable to talk about, those early days and the struggles, or is it almost like, there's the book, I want to move on with my story?
No, since the very beginning, from the moment I had my first conversation with the writer Daniel Bergner, which the book originated from an article with the New York Times magazine, I've never been a person who's ashamed of my past. And, for me, I can say this at 37 years old that I don't know how many adults can say this in their lives, that the worst moment of their life, like the lowest point of their life, is when they were like 12 years old. And for me, I can say that. And so for me, every moment that I wasn't locked up, every moment I got to wake up and breathe fresh air and pursue something that wasn't being in a cell, I knew it was better than the day before. And so for me, every trial and tribulation that I went through as a child and as a teenager prepared me and set me up to actually be a part of this career field, which is opera.
So it's
for me,
never removed from
Yeah, and I
your
love
being.
to talk about it because for me, not only does it help the audience and the people who listen to opera and watch operas feel connected to me and feel like they can, that I'm a real person. At the same time, those people who go see the operas, who go back and tell my story to someone who maybe would never see an opera or would know nothing about opera,
Right.
may want to go see one to see someone like who either they can relate to or seems normal to them on the big stage. And also, lastly, I think my story, which I didn't even realize it could be an inspiration or helpful to some educator, to some parent, or to some child who may not know that, the things that they're going through are, can not only not define them, but could also, they could get past it.
Yeah.
And that's my hope with every person who reads my book or listens to my story, to know that my story is not about being a horrible child or a bad teenager being locked up. It's about that, it takes a village. It takes a person it takes one person to believe in a child. It takes one person to love a child. And sometimes it takes a village to love a child, that they can overcome anything.
Well, and for those who may not know, you were in a juvenile detention center at the age of 12.
Yeah.
Was there, there's a fork in the road. You said just any day you could get up and smell the fresh air, but was there, or we now say inflection point. What was the inflection point, or who was that one person who made you believe in yourself when you were still in detention?
Yeah, I think I have two inflection points. One, the first inflection point sort of inadvertently led to the other, which is the first inflection point was when I was locked up, when again, not many 12-year-olds can say they spent a summer in juvie, and I did, and it was horrible, traumatic. Yep. And when I got out, the thing I didn't think about that I now often think about is the adult decision that I made at 12 years old when I got out of juvie. It's statistically proven that most children and teenagers who get into the system, the criminal justice system here in America, because it's not a system that cultivates a rehabilitation.
Right.
They pretty much get cycled back into the mainline criminal justice system and judicial system at 18, and it's a sad fact, but it's true, yeah. And it's a flaw of the American system when it comes to children and mental health and abuse. When I got out of juvenile detention, I made a very adult decision that I didn't want to end up back there. And most kids don't think about, what it takes to not get back into juvie.
Yeah.
And neither did I at the moment know what that entailed. But for me, I knew that the neighborhood I was living in was not conductive for kids living normal lives. I knew that the home I was living in was not a normal home. So I didn't have the support I needed inside of my home to help me get over whatever was affecting me. Mm-hmm. So I looked towards my school, and where there was a bigger pool of children. Yeah. And I remember in my first day back in class, I was in my homeroom and I was looking at the students that the teachers enjoyed being around, that the teachers liked to answer questions, that the teachers would have conversations with, because before that day, there's only one teacher in my entire life who ever actually enjoyed me or wanted to talk to me or wanted to be around me. And that's kind of sad to say. Yep. And I looked at those kids and I was like, what are they doing that's different than me? Why are they liked by teachers and I'm not? A lot of it had to do with the color of my skin, but that's another story. Yep. But I went to these kids, and the kids who were considered the nerds or things like this, these derogatory terms. Yay. And I basically started following them around and trying to attach myself to them. And I was so lucky and so blessed that those children, those teenagers, not only opened their group to me, but opened their hearts to me and opened their minds to let me in. And I was definitely not a smart kid. I was not I didn't know anything that they knew, but they were willing to teach me and have patience with me. And inadvertently, they changed my life. They showed me that a kid from a trailer park who just got literally locked up a summer before, could be in Latin club, could be in choir, could do all of these things which I never thought possible. And that inadvertently led me to want to be a better person and got me off the streets and got me into education.
That's what an amazing story. And you're so young to be that wise.
I was definitely not wise. It just happened that
Well, I mean, to
right
know,
place,
like,
right
follow
time.
those,
Yeah.
like, that was very wise. And are you still in touch with any of those?
Yeah. So, like, literally three of those boys who I've known, probably some of them since I was 13, 14 years old, were at my wedding when I got married. I see they constantly come up with their parents to see me at the Met. Some of them saw me in Champion.
Yes.
Some of them even saw me in my first roles at the Met. And it's kind of awesome that I could meet people from a small town in Windsor and Suffolk, Virginia, who are still connected to me today.
Wow. Well, I know that I read that you saw Denise Graves and Carmen.
Yeah.
Your school went there, and that was...
That was the second event, yes.
Oh, sorry, I forgot we had two coming.
Yeah.
But prior to that, was it being in chorus that made you want to sing in the first place, or were you always listening to music as a kid?
No, so again, the first moment of I guess you said was Inflection.
Inflection.
Inflection was making a decision to go and choose different friends in different environments.
Yeah.
And that led me to, as I mentioned, joining the Latin club, which then led me to choir. And I joined choir not because I loved music, but because the kids in the choir class were the same kids who were in my other classes. And I just wanted to be around them. I wanted any chance to be around these people who made me feel good and made me feel like I could be a better person. In choir, I was definitely, I will admit, I was a bit of a goofball, like maybe a bit of a class clown, but everybody has their place.
Yeah,
and I remember my choir teacher wanted all of us to audition for Government School for the Arts, which is a magnet school for the arts, kind of like FAME in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah.
She gave all of us like access to CDs and music books, and I didn't read music. Nor did I actually know how to sing, but there were a bunch of CDs, and I saw that there was a CD for 22 Italian art songs. And so I took the CD home, and I chose the shortest song, which was Caro Mio Ben. Yeah. And I sat there, and I thought it would be funny if I presented this to the class, because we had to sing this to the class.
Yes, yeah.
And so I learned Caro Mio Ben, and I sang it to the class a cappella or whatever. And the kids were laughing and stuff, and I made the fake operatic arms and everything like this. And my choir teacher asked me afterwards, "Who's my voice teacher?" And I was like, "I don't have a voice teacher." And she's like, "How did you learn to sing like that?" And I was like, "I just imitated the guy on the CD." And she was like, "Okay, you should definitely audition for Government School." Mind you, I wish she would have told me that I would have to audition with the piano, and that there are people watching me and writing notes and taping me, because if that tape ever surfaced, which I hope that the people who have access to it burned it, you would know what a bad audition is.
It's going to be on eBay tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to blackmail me or something. But it was I got into Government School, and we took a field trip. Every other year, the Government School takes a field trip to New York, the voice department, classic voice department. And that year, we saw I think 2 musicals on Broadway, and then an opera. And I was more interested, honestly, with going to New York City, because I'd never been, and I wanted to see the tall buildings and have New York pizza, hang out with all the kids. And we saw, I think the 2 musicals that we saw, one of them was 42nd Street, and I thought it was really awful. I just remember being like, this is not my cup of tea. and then we went to the Met. And I remember walking, the whole situation was almost literally like a movie. I remember walking into Lincoln Center, all the marble and almost gladiatorial type atmosphere that is Lincoln Center, and thinking this is going to be where opera is. In my preconception of what opera is, I thought it was some big fat white Viking lady, with the horns, breaking windows.
Yes.
And I walked into the Metropolitan Opera and saw, the Tiffany's glass, the red velvet carpet, and I literally thought I was in the Disney World of opera, in a castle. Yeah. And so I had these expectations of what I was about to see, something that maybe was too above me, and too elitist for me to even comprehend. And I get down in the audience, and this was literally the defining moment that the title character, the main character of the opera, which was Carmen, happened to be portrayed that night by the African-American mezzo-soprano Denise Graves, who is one of the greatest American operatic artists of her generation. Yeah. And it made opera tangible for me. And this is a theme of my life, a theme of how my career has moved forward, is the tangibility, the connection that I had that evening watching her and seeing her perform. I felt every emotion you could feel, because this is Carmen, one of the greatest accessible operas for any beginner to see. And the fact that it was this woman who looked like me, who I could imagine went to my mom's church, and the fact that she was from DC area,
Right.
Afterwards I got to meet her, which is even more magical. Imagine you see the grandest beginning opera that you could see, and then you get to meet the main performer. And she met us in the green room of the Met because she knew one of the people with the governor's school, and she took pictures with everybody in my class. Mind you, back then we had like Polaroids and things like this.
Yeah.
Still, so no cell phones, and took time to have every Polaroid pictures taken of every student, including me. And she hugged me and called me her boo, and I fell in love with her.
Yes.
My 15-year-old teenage self, and I left the Met having a dream. And I think it was the first time, my only dream at that point in my life at 15 was to get out of the hood,
Right.
was to graduate high school and get away from my home and better myself as a human being. But I never figured out what that meant or what path could lead me there. And when I saw my first opera, especially having it be in that situation, I knew that I wanted to be a part of this art form. I wanted in the smallest way, whether it was like being in the choir or just being a part of it. I knew that I wanted to tell stories. I wanted to be a part of that.
That's an amazing story. When did you know, when did you go from your dream to the reality, like a moment, it might not have been during the council audition, the Met Council, it might have been prior to that. I'm thinking where you just go, I've got it.
I've got it, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's different with everybody, of course. And for me, like, I loved opera and wanted to be a part of opera before I knew how to sing opera or had a voice,
right.
even. I don't think even I had yet hit puberty when I wanted to sing at the Met. And so for me, like, I was always far behind. I was always playing a catch-up game in the beginning. So much so that, in my first year of governor school, I found out later on, with the book, of course, Sing for Your Life, that my first year they were actually talking about moving on for me, like letting me go, because they thought that I was so far behind, both academically and musically, because I didn't know how to play piano. I'd never sung a solo. I was arguably the worst singer and the worst student in the program at that time.
I can't even believe it.
That they were thinking my space could be better used by another artist, because it was there was only a select few of spaces per year in the program. And Robert Brown, who was my choir teacher in the government school, and also one of the teachers for the advanced students, the voice teachers, he worked with the best of the best students, knew that, because he knew where I came from, he knew the neighborhood which I came from, he knew my story a little bit from just around. He knew that if I got out of the program, I'd most likely end up back on the streets, and it would crush me. Like, it would be so crushing that he didn't think that I could recover from it. And he knew how much he was the first person I ever told when I left the Met that my dream one day would be to sing at the Met. Not that I want to sing opera, but I want to sing at the Met.
Okay, got it.
And he was also the first person to tell me that I could do it. Not that I was good enough to do it. He told me that I had to complete almost a Madamina type list of all the things I had to complete just to be able to have an audition in the Met choir. That's how elite and top of the line the Met was. And when he knew he was in this meeting, he told them that he would be my voice teacher, because my voice teacher was actually my current voice teacher at the time was the one who wanted me to go. Wow. And so he said, I will be his voice teacher, and I will make sure not only that he can graduate from the program, but I'll make sure that he is a contribution to this program. Wow. And from that day forward, he took it upon himself and to put his foot on my neck, which he did. And let me tell you, those years of working with him, the first year, were the toughest learning years of my life. Even to this day, I've never had a tougher teacher, a person who pushed me to my limits and would let me settle for anything that wasn't his idea of what I should be. And we would sometimes spend an hour on one system of music. Mm-hmm. During that entire hour, it was some of the greatest musical learning I've ever done. I never was upset. I never was crying or felt that I was not good enough. I just felt that I was being pushed. Like I have to meet his standard because this man is believing in me.
Yeah, he's put it on the line.
I worked with him for a year on one piece, a piece that I sang in a spring concert. I'll never forget. I was 16 or 17, and I was singing this piece called "If Ever I Would Leave You" from Camelot. Mm-hmm. And it was my first aria that I ever worked on outside of like my audition aria, which was Caro Mio Ben. Yeah. And we worked on it for a year. And no one heard me sing it. I just had worked on it with Robert Brown every day, this one piece. And I remember I thought I was so prepared for it. I had worked on it, and we walked out. This is for the spring concert. My mom is in the audience. A bunch of parents are in the audience. And I walk out, and I have like a panic attack where I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to sing now in front of people.
You're right.
This is not just Mr. Brown in a practice room. This is a different beast. This is a different animal. And Robert Brown, of course, was playing piano for me. Thank God. And I get there in front of the area of the piano, where I felt the safest, which is probably inside of the piano. And I go on autopilot. And I think I honestly almost blacked out. And I just went on autopilot and sang the piece. And I opened my eyes. It felt like, probably didn't open my eyes, but I felt like I opened my eyes and the piece was over. And the first thing I saw and heard was my mother standing up screaming, like her tears pouring down her face, saying, that's my son, and clapping so loud. And all these other people stand up in a standing ovation clapping for me. And I don't even remember what I sang. I don't remember if I was even on pitch or whether I messed up any words. And I walked off stage with Robert Brown, and he grabbed me by the arm and pulled me to him so I could literally look him straight in his eyes because he was much taller than me at the time. And he said, "Boy, you better always sing like that." And it shocked me. And at the time, I didn't realize what that was. But looking back, that was the first moment in my career where I had, honestly, this is crazy to say, it was the first time in my career I got positive feedback.
Wow.
Like the first time in my life, someone that I respected, someone that I didn't expect it from, someone who I idolized, told me I did something good. And in a field that is based on criticism, right. I held on to that moment that this man, Robert Brown, who at that moment in my life was the greatest artist I had never known, told me that I was good at something and something that I wanted to be good at. And I held on to that moment probably for the next 10 years. And it got me through so many things in my life musically. And I'm so thankful for him and for telling me that I better always sing like that.
Because that's what you keep with you afterwards. Yeah. And, an opportunity like that, an opportunity is useless without all that preparation. Yeah. So he instilled that in you as well. And a really good vocal coach knows when you haven't really done your homework.
Yes, they do.
I do know about that. Well, I mentioned your Grammy wins for Gershwin's Porgy and Bess and Terence Blanchard's Fire Shut Up in My Bones. And just a couple of days ago, you were nominated again for your role as the boxer Emil Griffith in Terence Blanchard's The Champion.
Yes.
He was just in our studio last week, right before the nomination, right? That nomination. But I want to say congratulations, first of all, and what is it like working with him?
In the operatic world, we spend about all of our time working with dead composers' music. Yes. It is actually more common to work with a composer who's, hundreds of years old than it is to work with a composer who's 80 years old. Right. And so to work with someone who's not only living, but relevant in the style of music that they present and just with the community, with the musical community, is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And, I've been lucky in my short career that I've not only been able to sing, the Mozarts and the Wagners and the Puccinis, but I've also got to work with works by John Adams.
Yes.
And now to work with Terence Blanchard, it's a gift. And he's the kind of composer who inputs his style, and what I mean by that, I mean jazz is not an art form of everything is how do you say como scritto? Mm-hmm. It's an improvisational art form, and by that it literally you hear it and see it in his music. The same performance, the same opera, for instance, Champion,
Yeah.
like the next person who sings Champion, who sings Emile Griffith,
Yes.
they're not going to have the same performance I had. They can't, because the music, some of the notes that I sing were different than the notes that are written on the score. Some of the tempos and the variations. And I look at someone like LaTanya Moore,
Yeah.
who's been in a lot of his operas as well.
Right.
You know, Denise Graves premiered the role that LaTanya sang in Champion.
Yes.
Yet, if you listen to Denise Graves' performance, which was amazing, and then you listen to LaTanya Moore's performance, you wouldn't think it's the same role. And honestly, it's not. Like the cadenzas, that LaTanya did, the tempos, even honestly, some of the dialogue she put in was hers and hers alone. And that's what makes someone like Terence, who actually really encouraged this type of musicality
Yes.
and improvisation, it made every performance like exciting and brand new.
I know. I've loved his work for
Yeah.
decades, and I've done jazz radio
There's
for,
a reason why
for
he's
30 plus
A
years.
7-time Grammy Award-winning
Yes.
composer. There's a reason.
Yeah, when I first met him, he was jazz trumpeter working with Donald Harrison, and he just began writing film scores when I
Yeah.
first interviewed him. So wow, what a trajectory! You've mentioned a number of operas you've been in, and I did want to ask you, and you kind of said it, there is a difference in your approach to singing a contemporary opera as compared to, say, La Bohème or Rigoletto, or
Yeah, I would say for any artist, like you have to sing it with your voice. And for me, like, you know, my entire career or life has been about shattering preconceptions, both to, you know, operatic goers, to, you know, what can be an opera singer, who can be an opera singer, but also I shatter preconceptions as well to people who are not opera goers, because people assume that because of the color of my skin and where I came from in the South, that, you know, I grew up around music, I grew up around singing, and honestly, I am the worst R&B singer, the worst gospel singer. I did not grow up in that music. I was actually the kid sleeping in the pews when people were singing and preaching.
Right.
That was me. And so I am the purest form of opera singer. Like, I approach every piece, whether it be modern opera or classic opera, or even when I sing spirituals and contemporary music, I approach it as an opera singer, which is maybe different than someone like LaTanya Moore would approach it, who
Right.
has a background in both R&B and gospel.
Yes, she does.
And I think that helps me in some ways, that I approach every style of music as its own specific style.
Right.
But when you sing classical classical opera or contemporary opera, you have to sing with your voice, because if you don't, you're probably not going to be singing very long.
Right.
and you won't, most of the times you won't like it, because you won't think you sound good.
Right. Beautiful. Well, which roles have you not yet done that you're just dying to sing?
Well, I mean, that's a really, really hard question.
Yeah, because you have a long career ahead of you.
I mean, I would say, like, again, I'm 37 years old. I wouldn't even say I'm in my prime. I'm beginning. I'm a baby bass, as we like to say, baby bass baritone.
Yeah.
But I've been lucky enough that, like, the way I was taught and the way that I was cultivated, is that the right word? Cultivated in this art form, is there is no such thing as a small role. And so for me, like, feeling that way, like when I was singing the Mandarin in Turandot, that was a role I dreamed of singing, because I wanted to just be in an opera.
Right.
And to have be the first person who sings in an opera is such a cool opportunity, a very stressful one, but a very cool opportunity. And even now, like, you know, I was dying to sing, and actually will be singing my first Wotan in Rheingold.
Wow, yes.
in about 2.5 months with the LA Phil, with Gustavo Dudamel, Maestro Gustavo Dudamel conducting.
Yep.
And it's going to be my first Wotan. But and looking forward, like, you know, some of the roles I'm dying to sing that I hope one day to sing. If you've been to any of my recitals or heard me sing orchestral pieces, you know that I love the aria from The Flying Dutchman, Die Frisste from De Vliegende Hollander. And this is one of my dream roles that I'm in no rush to sing, but I would love to sing someday, as well as King Philip and Don Carlo. And if you're not an opera fan, you may not know that role or that opera, but if you know the voice type I am, which is bass baritone,
Yes.
this is probably the most iconic, if not top 3 most iconic roles
Right.
of my voice type, and I hope someday to sing that. And also, I love playing villains because, in reality, I'm a bit of a pushover, and not a bit of, I'm really a pushover.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm actually, I don't have much of a backbone when it comes to like being scary. So when I get to play villains, it like lets me be a part of a world and a story that's not normally me. And so I would love to someday sing Mephistopheles in Faust. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have, you mentioned an exciting moment earlier in your career, but do you have a favorite moment on the Met stage or on the world stage?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, like, every moment I get to perform is a beautiful moment to me. But, as I mentioned, as I also talked before, my entire life has been about shattering preconceptions, and there's been a preconception about me that has sort of followed me around. That because of the color of my skin and where I come from, that I have a lot of rhythm, but I'm actually like the worst dancer on the entire planet. And even my wife, my poor wife, who tried to like have me do a choreography with her on our wedding, had a rude awakening about the level of
Maybe
dance.
not.
Yeah, the level of dancing I could do and what's possible for me.
Yes.
So I'm shattering preconceptions all around.
That's awesome.
And with a champion, I got to do something that I never thought possible. Not only singing my first lead and having it be at the Metropolitan Opera, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But the fact that I got to dance, and if you saw Champion, you would know that my first entrance is pretty much like a 3.5 minute, 4 minute dance number.
Right.
And when I got into the rehearsals of this, working with one of the best choreographers on the planet, Camille Brown, who's choreographed shows on Broadway and award-winning shows at the Met. I got to work with her, and I was so nervous about the fact that she was just going to tell me to like go stand in the corner and let us dance. But she actually brought something out of me and worked with me with the dance troupe. Like they brought parts of my body, parts of my inner soul, my rhythmic soul, and so much so that when my wife saw me perform some of the first videos that came out and got to see me on the Met stage dancing and singing, she said her jaw was on the ground the entire time. And she's like, where has that been my entire life? But now, I don't think I'm so afraid to dance anymore.
And now you're hoping they'll delete the wedding video.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Please, it's not deleted, unfortunately.
Let's just redo it.
Yeah, but that's something the moment that I'll never forget and I'll take with me.
Tremendous. It's such a great story. I can't wait to read your second biography, follow your career along. So, Ryan Speedo Green, Speedo.
Yeah.
What, in your estimation, makes a great opera singer?
This is something that is different with every singer as well, and of course even more different with an audience than with people on the stage. And I think for people who are admirers and watchers of opera, it's about obviously the voice and the performance. But for me, as a person on the stage, what makes a great opera singer is a colleague, a great colleague, someone who not only is a great voice, because obviously if you're singing opera, in my opinion, you have a voice. Right. Because to be a musician is the hardest career field you can choose to be a part of, because it's not a career field of facts. Because if that were true, like if you sing enough operas, you'd be the best opera singer. Right. It's not like I think of it sort of like the debate of Michael Jordan and LeBron James. If it's a numbers thing, then you think LeBron, because LeBron has all the numbers. But if you're just on pure emotions, then you probably pick Jordan. Yeah. And opera singers, for me, even when I think about my operatic heroes, they're not the Pavarottis or the Placidos or even the Leontine Prices. Mm-hmm. My operatic hero is Robert Brown, who was in the many choruses across the nation, and he made me realize that at a very young age, again, that there's no such thing as a small role, and without a chorus, there is no opera. And for me, my operatic heroes are the people who make opera fun and exciting, not only for the people in the audience, but for people on the stage. And I look at someone, whose career I idolize. John Del Carlo was a bass baritone who sang at the Met. He passed away in 2016. And many people who love opera may not know who he is. His name may not ring a bell, but for people in the business at the highest level, they know who he is. Yeah. People like Pavarotti took him with him across the world to perform with them, not because he was the greatest bass baritone, but because every moment he was on stage with them, he made this job better and more fun and more exciting. And when I got to the Met as a young artist, I was very green, and I was most of my time just being scared and nervous. Every minute that I was with him in a production, or even he was with me in the cafeteria, I felt like I was safe. Mm-hmm. I felt like I could make mistakes. I felt like I could ask questions, and it didn't feel too big. And when he passed away,
Gosh.
suddenly, the outpouring from the community, from the operatic community, not from the community of people who listen to opera, but from
Right.
the people who make opera happen,
In the business.
was almost as big as if he were Pavarotti. Because he had that kind of effect on artists and on his colleagues. And that's the kind of legacy when I'm done in this field, whether it be, on my own choice or
Yes.
whether it just be because I have to leave it. I hope that the legacy that I leave is something of being of that nature, being a good colleague and a good singer.
That was going to be one of my questions that I didn't put on the list that I sent to you. But I do want to ask you, Ryan Speedo Green, you've been in Austin for about a week, and you will be here for about a week. Where are you headed next? What do you have in the near future?
Yeah, so I leave Austin soon, and my very next thing will be the second performance of an opera called Lohengrin. I'm singing König Heinrich, and this will be at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. And it was a big moment for me because it was the first time of me singing a major German role in a German-speaking house,
Right.
Other than Vienna. And it's sort of like what's the right word? It solidifies all of the work that I put into singing this rep, and German rep is going to be a huge part of my future operatic roles, and
Yes.
you'll see a lot of all of that work and roles growing into bigger things in the future.
Wonderful. And the audience is a little different.
They're definitely a little different over there.
How do you work off of the German audiences compared to an American audience?
I mean, the thing about, two things. First of all, like the European audience and the American audience, as different as they are, like they're good and bad in both ways. The operatic operatic art form is something that in German houses they're literally born into. Like you could throw a stone in any German city and there'd be an opera house.
Yeah, yes,
so
that's true.
even thinking about Vienna, where I've been living for the last 9 years.
Yeah.
Every child in Vienna gets to see an opera at least once or twice a year from the moment they're 5 until the moment they're 18. And there's access to tickets at opera houses, like as if you're a student, that you can get a 10 euro ticket that would cost someone probably hundreds of euros.
Yeah.
And I think the access and the availability of opera being poured into the community, it makes it so the audiences are, more invested. And by that, I mean like maybe harsher critics.
Right.
And maybe not so much in a good way, but in the U.S., what I love about the U.S. community, maybe they're not so immersed in it as Europeans, but they appreciate the performance.
Right.
Like I will tell you, like some of the smallest roles I've ever sung, I've gotten the most feedback and adulation and positive applause at the end of a role. Like I've never been in an opera or seen an opera in America where every role wasn't applauded. Even if someone's having a bad night, people in the audience appreciate a performance and they're clapping, they're bravoing, even trying to get past that one or two person who's booing.
Yeah.
In Europe, I've been to performances where people don't clap, and it makes me a little bit sad to that the audience doesn't realize that they couldn't do what that person is doing. And everybody's a critic, of course, but the best critics are the people who understand how hard it is to be a performer.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I hope maybe in the future, as we're getting more access to what it takes to be an opera singer, that the people in the audience will be more appreciative of the performers who are performing for them. Because when you don't have that performer performing for you, you're going to realize you're missing something, you're lacking something, and that's art.
Hear, hear. Well, I know that we're looking forward to all of your upcoming performances, and we'll hear you again, I'm sure, on the Met. And also the Austin Opera ATX PBS show. Do we have an idea about when that will be on the air?
I'm assuming like February, maybe in February. Yeah.
That soon. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you will reach many, many more ears at that time, millions more ears. I want to thank you so much for taking the time. It's been great chatting with you, and thank you, Ryan Speedo Green.
Thank you.
The best.
Thank you, Thank you, City of Austin. Thank you, Texas, for inviting me here and being a part of this arts community. And please, if you can, support your local opera companies, because it's not only the money you donate that helps, but it's also your butt in the seat that helps. The audience wants to, the singers on stage want to see you and sing to you. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
you.